a woman raised her hand and asked a question, and she said, "Well, what about praying for your enemies?"
Mhm.
And I said, "That's a really good
Yeah.
question." And I said, "So let's imagine I knew she had children. Your second grader comes home and she's been being bullied,
Mhm.
and it happens for the fifth time. And in your mind, like, I'm supposed to pray for my enemies, so you skip over what you're feeling and begin praying for this child in a very surfacey way. Instead of praying, I don't like this child. I'm
Yeah.
mad at
Being
this
honest
child.
about it.
And then praying through that for maybe a month or two, and over time, the Lord shifting your heart
Mm-hmm.
towards loving that child, and then praying out of that. And really, what I would talk about in terms of our lament and grief is we need a language on how to relate to the Lord in difficulty so that He's really changing us.
Yeah.
And we're not skipping over it, and more of our change being self-reliant. Like, I'm going to be happy and I'm going to pray for my enemy
Right.
because that's what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like our vulnerability with God helps so much.
Yes. Yeah, no secrets are hid from Him. And in essence, when we're being more honest, we're learning things about ourselves that the Lord already knows. Like, He's not
Yes.
afraid of our sin and our fear and our anger. He wants us to come more in touch with it so that He can be part of the change process for us.
Yes. And it deepens your relationship with him because it's like a friend when you entrust them with, well, I really don't want to love this child, or I really don't want to change this about myself, or whatever. You get closer to that person because you know them more.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
deepening of a relationship.
yeah. If you even think about the story of Job,
Mm-hmm.
where Job is incredibly honest with the Lord, like, essentially, we know what happened. I mean, he lost everything.
Right.
And so his friends come and they see his despair and they sit with him for a week. So he thinks they're good friends.
Right.
And after a week, he pours out his heart and they go from good friends to bad friends because they're saying, Job, you have a horizontal problem. You didn't do this. You should have done that. You could have done this. And Job keeps saying, I've got a vertical problem. Like, I don't know who God is anymore. Until He reminds me who He is, I will have no rest. So
Mm-hmm.
for 30 chapters, they have this argument about vertical and horizontal. He keeps saying, I've got a vertical problem.
Mm-hmm.
They keep saying it's horizontal. And when God speaks, most people hear God condemning Job because He says, where were you when I formed the foundations of the world? But what we really see is God's answering Job's question, because Job kept saying, I will have no rest until God reminds me who He is. And then God also says to Job's friends, if you go and offer Job a sacrifice and he prays for you, I will restore you, because you have not spoken rightly about like my servant Job.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really think about the Lord listening to Job for 30 chapters and then finally speaking. That's why I think Job was so changed, because the Lord had actually listened to him and heard all his laments. So now what God had to speak really impacted him. And it would
Yeah.
be no different with our friends. Too often we want to give them quick advice,
Yes.
which really feels like rejection. So when we wait with them, when we help them lament, when we help them grieve, and then we speak when it's a good time,
Mm-hmm.
those words actually penetrate. Those words actually will help people.
Yeah.
How do you know when it's a good time to speak?
Yeah, it's a great question. And what I try to keep teaching my students is you're never going to know what you're doing,
Huh.
and you're not supposed to know what you're doing. You really have to learn to wait. This is Romans 12:12. Rejoice in hope, slow down in tribulation, persevere in prayer. Well, hope is not seen. Like, as we keep trusting in what we do not see and we keep waiting, I think better and better we can hear the Spirit and move with Him. And that's the confidence we want to grow. Not oftentimes we're speaking out of our own stuff, our own selfishness, our own fear,
Yeah.
which feels like rejection of people. But as we learn to wait on the Lord and trust Him, then we have a better sense of when to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, back to kind of the self-awareness, what would you say to somebody who is just wants to say it's okay and I don't want to deal with my feelings. I don't want to sit in that. What are you, I mean, I know you counsel people to do that. What is your kind of first step of saying, like, hey, it's okay to not be okay, but then how do you tell someone to sit in it? And what are your suggestions to even get started on that path?
Yeah. Well, that actually, what you said is a good first step to kind of meet them there, first of all, and to be like, why would you want to pray? And oftentimes, and I'm not saying this directly, what we don't see, like what's getting in the way between us and the Lord is our fleshly or sinful nature, which is full of fear and doubt. And so oftentimes that's pushing us away from the Lord. So when we give people permission to be there, then we're actually helping them stand up to their fleshly nature. Like as we wait with them, we help them sorrow, we help them grieve. You shouldn't want to do this.
Yeah, that's true.
In terms of growing self-awareness, I don't know that there's a great place to start instead of other than what I've already said in terms of trying to wait with them and believing that, like, if we really believe for people that they do want to do what's good and right and that we can't make them get there, oftentimes as we wait with them, our presence is what helps them change. Our presence is what helps them turn to the Lord. Or, like, if we really believe God is the center of all good and he's always pursuing us, like he's always trying to draw us to him. This is an example
So
I often
sweet.
use. An arrogant, self-assured 19 or 20-year-old, and I drive out from Long Island in New York to visit my sister in college in Western Pennsylvania. And I drive out, it's in the fall, 8 hours out, 8 hours back, rolling hills in Pennsylvania, beautiful fall colors. I get back into New York after the weekend. I'm like, what's the big deal with the fall colors? Like, I don't understand why people drive out to Pennsylvania to, spend a weekend looking at the fall colors. Well, about 30 years later, I was a little bit humbler. I'm driving down I-65 from North Alabama, and I look outside, and I'm like, God, you are so kind. You are so kind.
Yeah.
And the heavens declare his glory. So if we really believe God is that big and that kind and he's pursuing people, I believe they want to surrender themselves to him. I don't have to make them do that.
Yeah.
To ask good questions, wait with them. Sometimes there has to be some exposure of how they trust themselves or where they trust themselves. And oftentimes I'm looking at their relationships to kind of help them see some of that.
Yeah.
But I don't know that any of us really wants to judge the log in our own eye first.
Yeah.
Right? It's
So
so
helping people
hard.
go there is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My daughter and I were talking about that because it is so easy to see the speck in somebody else's eye instead of the huge plank that's in our own eye. It's like, and it almost makes you feel good when you're like, let me get that speck out of your eye. And you're like, wait, hold on, you Pharisee. Like, hold tight. But it is. I mean, it's hard to look at your own life. It's hard to reflect on like who we really are in light of who God is. When I compare myself to, my neighbor, it's fine. But when I compare myself to God, I'm not doing so hot,
Yeah. And I don't only believe that it's self-awareness is seeing what's wrong with ourselves. Oftentimes when I'm teaching in the passage in Ephesians where it says, speak the truth in love to one another.
Yes.
And I'll ask the audience what that means. And they'll often say saying hard things to people. So then I'm like, so all that your friends or family do is sin? Is that all we're, And I've actually found people have as hard a time hearing what's beautiful and glorious about them.
Yes.
So real self-awareness is celebrating our strengths, seeing them, not being afraid of them.
Yes.
Paul says, I'm a called and gifted apostle. I'm not about to apologize for it. And he says, I'm a chief among all sinners.
Yeah.
So good self-awareness is both. And that's where I think a lot of our self-awareness people is only where you're wrong or off or sinful, or the other way, only where you're good. And leaning into truth is both. It's real, and coming to self-acceptance that I'm just a human being with some really glorious aspects and some really broken aspects.
Yes. In fact, that was one of my favorite lines. I don't know if you've seen The Chosen, but like Mary sins again in The Chosen, and Jesus looks at her and he's like, did you think you would never sin again? It's like, he really wants our communion. He wants to be with us. Like, he knows we're gonna fall. I mean, he doesn't judge us. He died for our sins way before we ever said we were sorry for them. He loves us genuinely, not because of like the perfect that we think that he expects us to be.
If we were if he died when we were alienated from him, how much more now is he for us that we're friends?
Yes.
I really am glad you said that, because that is such a picture. I feel like I tend to lean towards the way of like, I got to get it together and I need to be aware of what's wrong with me. But it's so easy to forget that like God has so much love for me as well. And that's the sweetness of the truth in that.
It's equally humbling, really, to hear both.
Yeah. And it's like the leaves where you're like, you love me. You made these leaves for me. You, the God of the universe, cares about me. And that's a really great place to even find who God made you to be, to dig into that. So, I know you also wrote a book about marriage. Is that right? So we can cover everything today.
Brief and
Can we jump to that? You want to tell us how to help our marriage?
What's a good way to communicate with your spouse?
We got a long list of questions.
Communication. No,
the book is Common Ground, and kind of the big theme, what happened as I was working with couples, over decades, and really watching people who really loved one another and were trying. Like, these are people, a lot of the people I were working with were married as believers, caring about their marriage, knowing they weren't going to get divorced, and really doing the hard work of marriage, and still really experiencing a lot of division that they were blaming on themselves or blaming on each other. And so really what the book is to uncover, in essence, how the world and the flesh, the two things that we oppose, and the enemy, and how they get us lost in ourselves and blaming on one another. So it's really how to undo the subtle kind of lies of evil in your marriage. And I deal with the New Testament commands to the husband and wife are actually different, all right? And that's because I think we're made differently, and in our being, in our ontology, we want different things. Now, we're living in a culture where that's not a super popular thing to talk about, but I think when we understand kind of the big things that are operating behind our communication, then we do a better job communicating. I'll just give you one example. I talk about the physical differential. In 1 Peter 3, it says to the husband, keep treating your wife with understanding as with a weaker vessel, which simply means physically weaker. And then it says, if you do not treat her the way you should, your prayers will not be heard. Now, as women, you both know what it's like to be a woman in this world and be physically weaker. Like, I don't have to ask you which gender growing up got more inappropriate touches and comments, right?
Right.
We know the answer to that. And so if a husband is sensitive to the physical differential and the vulnerability a woman feels, then he tries to treat her with understanding, and that actually pushes evil away. Okay, if you do not treat her the way you should, your prayers will not be heard. And part of what I get into the book is I actually believe the scriptures teach, in the context of marriage, over the marital relationship, the wife will get beat up a little bit more about what's going on because she's more vulnerable. If you look at the Genesis passage, okay, who was tempted? Eve. Okay, she eats the fruit. And it says she turns and gives it to her husband who was there with her. All right? And it's when he eats it that together they realize they're naked and ashamed. All right? So to some degree, they just weren't working together. But what Adam wasn't doing was treating his wife with understanding, remembering what God said, stepping in, being involved. And so the New Testament commands to the husband, all three, keep treating your wife with understanding, the one I already quoted from 1 Peter 3, Ephesians 4 or 5, I forget, sacrifice for your wife, and then Colossians 3, love your wife and don't be embittered. All three of them say to husbands, you have a little bit more to give your wife. And what I see husbands is passivity in their marital relationships. So oftentimes I'll say, I'll say to a couple, let's say you're going through something a little where there's some tension, and on a scale of 1 to 10, oftentimes the wife will feel a little bit more fear about it. So to her, it feels like a 7 or 8. To the husband, it feels like a 5. So he thinks, if I move up and say it's a 7 or 8, she's going to go to a 10. So he says it's a 4. So then she says it's a 12. And he says it's a 0. And and they're arguing over the intensity. And so I say, husband, move up and just say, it must be hard to experience it that way. Then she comes down.
Right.
Because he's treating her with understanding. So that's kind of what, that's a big idea, just a physical differential, how that comes into play in communication. That's some of the stuff I deal with in the book.
That's really good.
Wow, that's crazy. Yes, because I can definitely see that in my own house. I'm like, but sometimes I'm the one that goes down really low, and my husband's the one that goes up really high. But maybe if I'm met more in the middle, but I'm always afraid to go up because then I'm like, oh, if I go up, then he's gonna skyrocket off.
That's right. That's right.
Like, trying to keep it, level.
Yeah.
But I didn't think of it that way of like that it would like maybe ease his burden if I did come up and like legitimize his fears.
Yeah. Yeah, we really don't, all of us don't do what the scriptures teach us, right? We're called to help each other with their issues, not solve them.
Oh, right.
Or resent them. Like it's really easy as a spouse to resent that your spouse struggles. And not want to help them with that.
Yeah.
So
like, just get over it.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Shake it off. Come on. Let's keep moving. Like, you're fine.
Yeah.
That's my mother-in-law laughs all the time because when my kids fall or when they were really little, they were falling. Be like, oh, you're fine. Be fine. Come on.
Yeah.
Like, just keep moving. So I don't have a lot of empathy. I'm definitely not great on that. So I'm going to get better.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is. You do need to be able to help them. You're great at that. I mean.
Well, I'd love to kind of go back to what we were already talking about since you brought that up.
Okay.
And I know you have studied this, but what are your thoughts on a conversation, not saying you did that, but
I definitely
where this is kind of what I've been thinking about with parenting or how you're relating to kids' needs or anyone's needs.
Yeah.
But where is the point where you're meeting them? I think you mentioned earlier just listening and saying, I recognize this about you. I'm saying like not the kids example necessarily, but where do you find the point of care versus enabling versus not letting them feel their needs?
Yeah.
And I know that can affect things later.
Yeah. It's a great question, and I think it's a super important question today. You may or may not be familiar with what it can be called is gentle parenting. Now, the scriptures are so clear, and really we are to err on the side of kindness and gentleness and mercy. So I think some of that emphasis is super important. But really what you're pointing towards is if that's all we do, then I don't know that our children are really going to develop resilience.
Yeah.
Because in a fallen world, we're not going to get away from having to do difficulty, whether that's relational difficulty, having to push through at work. And so what I would say, really, the question you asked is the question the parent needs to be asking, not I'm always going to be gentle or I'm always going to make them pull themselves up by their bootstraps, right? But I'm going to ask the question and really, again, trying to come back with a daily walk with the Lord and learning to depend on Him and listen to His Spirit. Like what I'll say is the worst thing to do is read one parenting book or 500 parenting books. But the best thing to do is read some parenting books or listen to some podcasts, talk to some people, become self-aware, and then be asking the question, how do I guide this child? And one of the simplest things to remember when it says, train up the child in the way he should go, when he's older he won't depart from it, we often think that means teach them the fundamentals of the faith. But train a child in the way he should go. Like every child is made in a certain way, okay? They have a certain personality, a certain bent. And really the gospel speaks uniquely to that bent. Like a typical firstborn is a pleaser. And so oftentimes they need to see there's some self-righteousness, kind of an older brother mentality. The secondborn tends to be a little bit licentious, or like firstborn sees a line and steps back, secondborn sees a line and steps over. Often say the thirdborn gets to the line and be like, is there a line?
What
just
line?
So cute and comfortable. And, but so part of the issue on even resilience is knowing your child a little bit. So I know to lean in a little bit or not lean in. And then one of the biggest things as a parent is to accept that on your best day, you're going to only do the best you can do.
Right.
And you're not going to do it great. And so I say my definition of a good parent is someone who's decided not to give up.
Right.
Like a willingness to stay in there and really consistent parenting. Like I laugh a little bit when parents are trying really hard to be consistent because I'm like, keep trying. And
every morning
there's going to be a hurricane day when you can't go to work and you're frustrated. And like, anyway, there's a million things that come up. Consistency is this: God, by your grace, I'm going to get up tomorrow and try again with the thing I want to be best at, and I'm going to make more mistakes than I'm comfortable with. And so being able to ask the question, do I lean in this time? Do I not lean in? But I'm going to stay at it. And by God's grace, I'm going to get better each day as a parent. That's my commitment.
Well, and I love that vulnerability too. Like, okay, so yes, I didn't do it exactly right this time. Hey guys, mom's here. Mom had a bad moment. I'm sorry. This is not what God's called me to. But
Yeah.
let's try this again. Or no, I wasn't very merciful when you were scared of the dark. Let's pray through about this, and then let's keep moving.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one of my funnest stories to tell about parenting. I'm simply talking to my oldest daughter. She's doing some counseling in college. She's a junior in college. I asked her how it's going, and she said, "Well, Dad, I'm learning things about our family, and I'm just trying to stay positive." And I asked her what she's learning, and she said, "Well, Dad, everything in our family that's so hard and that's so sad." So, as a counselor, I wanted to really attune to their feelings too much because I didn't feel like my feelings were attuned to.
Uh-huh.
And she said, "And you don't understand, I'm so much more fun and free than y'all appreciate." And so I said to her, "Sweetie, it's been really good to watch you become a better version of yourself at college and to see your friends appreciate that about you."
Yeah.
And then we kind of talked about how from that point forward, she liked our family because it was deep, but didn't like our family because it wasn't as much fun. And then liked college because it was more fun, but didn't like it because it wasn't as deep.
deep.
But she was just becoming a better version of herself. And I didn't have to be afraid to see our wrong, right? Because I want our ceiling to be her floor,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really sweet. I like
That's
that.
also a good reminder because I do the same thing. I'm like, we're going to talk about everything. Do you feel okay? Everything is like, I'm not traumatizing you, am I? How are your, what are you feeling? But just to see you do that, she's like, I'm good. I just want to have fun for a minute.
Well, and again, not to minimize it, but this culture is all about feeling. There's an importance to it. But every culture, we throw the baby out with the bathwater. So by God's grace and hopefully by the Spirit of truth guiding us into truth, we can do a little better job and live in the tension better.
Yeah. The balance.
Yeah.
The balance.
Between us.
Yeah, avoiding extremes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it is. It's so ezy. You're like, oh, I'm just going to do 100% this way or 100% this way. And that middle ground is so important in all things. I think it's like the man who loves the Lord fears all extremes or something. I'm paraphrasing that. I'm not. But anyways. But I love that. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but you said one of your favorite verses, or I'm cheating on my thing, but was sorrowful yet always rejoicing, poor yet making many rich, having nothing yet possessing everything.
Yeah.
But that resilience and being able to teach that to your children, that was the first verse that I ever memorized on my own. When I was a little kid, I found it and memorized it, and I just loved it. But like, it teaches that resilience. Yes, I'm sorrowful, but I'm still going to be always rejoicing. So that resilience is so important to learn at an early age, because I do think we see so many coddled Christian babies that don't go out to the world because one thing knocks them down and they can't get back up on their own. And I don't want to raise that. I want to raise children that are more resilient and that can stand up on their own and take the rejection of the world. But it's hard.
Yeah. Well, and resilience is both parts, right? Like sometimes pushing through and getting out there when it's difficult, but also admitting when it's difficult. And because blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. In our lamenting and sorrow, the Lord meets us, as much as we need reminders of pushing through, because at times that's the only choice you have. But as you build resilience, it helps you realize I can do difficult things. I can push through. So both are part of that resilience.
Yeah. It's kind of funny how life's kind of like a stairway. And once you've kind of gotten up high, you kind of look back and you're like, oh, I walked up this many steps. I can keep going,
It's a big part. I think there's a big part of faith is being able to look back and remember both the Lord and I have done this. We can keep going. There's difficult things we can do that's ahead of us.
Yes. What's one of your most favorite things to teach people that come to you? If they're hurting, what's your most favorite way to minister to them?
I think we've probably already talked about it. And again, it's shifting. As I'm talking, I'm realizing what my favorite thing was lamenting. Our culture's becoming more comfortable with that. So I'm really not teaching it as much.
Now it's going to be joyful, being joyful.
Well, honestly, I would say this, and in my own journey, I actually realized joy is a harder emotion than sorrow. Okay, when it talks about, sorrow comes in the night, but joy comes in the morning. If we actually have done the hard work of accepting that the world is painful, I think joy actually becomes harder because you now know that it's not always going to be joyful.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when it's good, it's like, I don't want to lean into that because it's just going to get bad again.
Yeah.
And so actually practicing at joy is you guys help me get, like, I am teaching more of that now.
Yeah.
In fact, trauma is a big word today. Neuroscience, neuropsychology is a big thing in the counseling world. What neuroscience has shown us is that your brain automatically attaches to the negative and repels what's positive. So you actually
Really?
have to think on what's positive for over 25 seconds to attach to it.
Really?
Yes, the fear center of your brain develops first, and your implicit memory is usually more attracted to fear. If you've heard the term dysregulation, it means you're stuck in your emotional brain, and it's harder to get out of that fear. So the more you're regulated, the more both parts of your brain are working together, and you're able to remember what's true. So in Philippians, we have, what's ever honorable, what's ever right, what's ever worthy of praise, think on these things. So actually, that's a verse, the Philippians 4:8, that more and more I'm teaching to kind of help us live in that tension of to become resilient, to move ahead, to live in joy. And really, our joy is not that this world is ever going to satisfy us, right?
Right.
If our hope in Christ is in this world only, we're to be pitied more than anything. So if we're sorrowing and then we experience joy, that joy is a reminder not that I'm going to have everything I want here on earth, but that heaven is coming and I'm touching it in these beautiful moments. I think sorrowing well helps you to attach to a real joy that's never ending. And our buoyancy in this world is being connected to eternity. It's not, I've got the happiest marriage, I've been a great parent, the things we've talked about.
Yeah.
So I would say that Philippians 4:8 would be a central theme these days.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's great.
I didn't realize that it would take 25 seconds to hold on to something joyful.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is something that makes me want to help teach my children to like look for the happy things and let's look for the joy things. And
Well, yeah, it's what I'll be working with a couple that comes in a bad place, and let's say a couple months in, they come in and they say we have nothing to talk about because they're in a better place. And I'm like, so we don't talk about when it's good? We don't celebrate it? And so then I help them celebrate. And honestly, as we begin celebrating, they'll find something and go back to the negative. I'm like, today, guys, we're celebrating.
today's a happy day.
And I keep
find
making them do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to keep going back to the happy.
Yeah.
It is funny. Like, I do think some people are more prone towards negative.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and
yeah.
like finding the negative,
Yeah,
like it'll be
yeah.
a great day, and then something, and like, oh my goodness, how did you just take this train down? But like, and I think on the opposite side, some people are more trained towards happy.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
and sometimes
yeah.
I can be a little bit too much rainbows and unicorns for my crowd.
Yeah. Yeah,
good thing.
and we really need both.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. Well, you mentioned dysregulation. What are some ways that you have learned that you can connect your body with how to get regulated? I know you said focus on the scripture, but are there any other ways that are
Yeah.
practical?
I mean, there's a couple simple things. One is deep breathing. Breathe
Okay.
in through your nose, out through your mouth. Do that 3 or 4 times. If you're sitting, get up and walk around. Walking is one of the primary ways because the bilateral movement after you've walked for a while, that begins to help both parts of your brain work together. And I've been teaching more and more. The funny thing is, like for years, I was talking about if someone had anxiety or depression, in addition to all the rational, cognitive, scriptural things, like I was talking about diet and exercise.
Okay.
And I realized the more I did it, for people who are struggling with depression, the energy to exercise. So then I started saying, you need to do some movement, get your heart rate up. Well, now you read the neuroscience stuff and that's what they're teaching because even the stress of exercise. So walking is another one of those techniques. Grounding, like a lot of people will walk into a place and feel some anxiety because, again, the emotional part of your brain, your nervous system begins to track and see if you're safe or not before the rational part of your brain is working, so you can feel anxious. And so grounding is just like focusing on something in the room and begin telling yourself, like, that's a clock, it's 10 o'clock today, here's what I'm doing, I don't need to be anxious. So grounding, deep breathing, walking, they're 3 simple things.
That's neat.
Yeah.
So good.
And one, I forgot, one of the others, one of the most important is when you talk to somebody who's more regulated than you, you actually feed off their nervous system. If earlier in the conversation, we talked about just listening well and coming alongside people. If you have those people, that's another thing that really helps you regulate.
Being
is
around regulated people.
Yeah, who listen and hear
Yeah.
you. Yeah,
Oh.
That's good to know.
yeah.
So like as a parent, like when my children are like kind of, say spiraling out over a test or something,
Yeah.
like just going out and taking a walk with them might be a good way to help them regulate
That's right.
themselves and
That's
like
right.
know what's happening and pray while we're walking or talk about it first and then pray, take it to the Lord together.
No, that's a great
Right.
point. And realize as you start walking, if at that point you want to start rationally thinking, now your brain will actually work together better to hear what's true. But when you're dysregulated, you can try to hear it all day long and it's not going to get inside you.
Yeah. And that's so frustrating for the person who needs the help regulating and for the person who's trying to help regulate.
Right.
That person.
Yeah, because usually we get more dysregulated by someone who's not regulated instead of the other way around.
Right.
Yes. Experience that. Would you tell us a little bit more about what you're starting at Beeson and what you hope to get?
Yeah. It's a big question these days because I've been spending a lot of time. I was hired back full-time about 2 years ago. And at that point, we began to dream and talk about starting a Master of Arts in Christian Counseling. And Beeson's kind of commitment has been to the church. So this is a non-licensed degree, but it will train you to work in a church, a nonprofit, an outpatient, like Daymark Pastoral Counseling. You could work for us as an outpatient counselor.
Nice.
And really what it's going to do is ground people on how to think theologically about people and their problems and really how to help them move ahead. Like so much, even if, let's say you were going to another seminary and doing a clinical mental health program, you might have more of a clinical approach, not a pastoral approach. And you might be helping someone like with emotional and mental well-being. Well, as a Christian, I really believe like thriving is much bigger and more beautiful than good mental health or emotional health. And part of thriving is giving and receiving in Christian community and resilience, like we talked about, like maybe moving beyond. A lot of the trauma work someone would be doing, a lot of that's good, but a lot of that is trying to just get people calm, not living in the range of resilience where there's some anger and there's some sorrow. Like just being calm is not a biblical value, okay?
Right.
Jesus, if you looked at all the emotions of Jesus in the scripture, you would think he was emotionally unstable. But he actually lived in the range of resilience. He had joy that was exceeding. He sorrowed.
Yeah.
He felt all the emotions. So we want to help our students move towards thriving themselves to be helping guide and counsel others towards thriving. So it's going to be a Christian counseling degree that is really grounded in the scriptures and helping students kind of experience the gospel of depth in their own hearts so that they can lead and guide others in the same direction.
That sounds wonderful.
It does.
How long's the program?
The program is, if you do it full time, it's 2 years. There's other options, but it would be 3 semesters, fall, spring, and summer, 3 courses a semester.
Yeah, that's great.
I think it's
I know that's gonna
amazing.
help a
Yeah,
lot of
and
people.
you can't teach something that you don't know. And it's hard to meet somebody, and not everybody's been through horrible traumas, but everybody has suffered through their life. And so being able to help them to like relate to those people and help them to get out from the different situations and embrace the pain and then be able to make that joyful, even like, or experience joy even in the sorrow.
Yeah. Well, this will go back to the degree and some of else of what we've talked about. And I want to say to some degree that's true. Like we can't teach people what we don't know. But by the same token, like when you're sitting across from someone, the first thing you're going to feel is, I should know how to help them. I should know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And if you believe that, you won't be of help. Because really, what we want is to be a vessel and to do the work of the Spirit. Like I say to my students all the time, like one of them wrote on their paper and said, like you've always said in class, we can only take someone as far as we've gone. And I said, I've taken people a lot further than I've gone, but it hasn't been me. It's been the work of the Spirit taking that person. So I try to teach our students, I want them to more kind of what I'm saying, to not feel like they have to know it all and they have to be great, but that they can be more humble and dependent on what the Spirit's doing. Because oftentimes things come to me in counseling. And like early on, it was like, after I said it, like, I want to write that down. I could make some money off of that, right? And it was
This
like,
is a jewel.
that was for that person
Yeah.
in that moment.
Yeah.
So the
Yes.
Lord could take them much further than I could take them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want our students to be grounded in that they're
Yeah.
a vessel.
That's great.
They're not the Savior.
Well, really, we all are vessels. Like,
Yes,
we're the
right.
hands and feet of Jesus.
Yes,
like,
yes.
I mean, and anything good that comes out of us really is from the Lord and what He's getting to do in and through us,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
which is exciting.
Yeah,
And He just
yeah.
prepares us for where He has us. But, I mean, we get to
It
just
is.
be
Yeah.
Yeah,
feet
No,
that's
that's
very
well said.
exciting. I know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I have another question.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like everyone now, there's a lot of more talk about therapy and there's a lot of openness. And
Yeah.
I feel like it's, everyone has a therapist. In your opinion, do you feel like everyone needs counseling?
Yes. I would say two things. The first thing, I think counseling is the normal and natural function of Christian community. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what's becoming a little dangerous in our culture now, it has totally shifted from when I started counseling
Yeah.
30 years ago till now. A couple years ago, I had to, in my counseling schedule, I had to come to some people and say, we need to switch from like once a month to every other month, because people are doing more maintenance counseling, which wasn't a thing 30 years ago. But I think what's dangerous in our culture is for your therapist to be the only person who knows what's going on with you, because they only know you from your perspective.
Yeah.
So I think what the scriptures teach in addition to that is that we are to have a community of people who know us. Like Jesus had two people he was closer to, and then a little bit outer circle. So I think there needs to be at least two people who are in your everyday world. And if you're married,
Yeah.
know your spouse and your children, and can see your foibles as a
Real,
parent,
yeah.
Yeah.
and can see you frustrated and tired, and still speak kind of what we were talking about earlier, kindness and maybe some truth you need to
truth.
hear.
Yeah.
Both, right?
Right?
So I really think, yes, everybody needs counseling. Does everybody need a therapist? I don't think the way we're talking about it today, everybody does.
Yeah.
I think there's a beauty and a value in a therapist, even in the anonymity, okay? Because when we are seeing someone up close, we see a lot, but it also makes it hard to see a person. When we see somebody from a distance, we don't see as much, but sometimes we see more clearly. So I think a therapist can be super helpful with that. So oftentimes when you get stuck, it can be really helpful to have someone who sees clearly to help you get unstuck. But again, if that's all you're doing, and probably either way, there's the danger. If you're afraid to ever open up to somebody who might see you more clearly and is a little bit trained, that's not wise.
Right.
If that's all you're doing, it's not wise.
Yeah.
Great answer.
That makes me feel so much better because I have friends that are really like two really close friends that know me, like that can they know the ugly, the good, the bad, the ugly, you know. But then I don't see a counselor. But I mean, I always thought, well, maybe something's wrong with me because I don't. But I mean, like I take their advice and I heed them and I run it through the seed of Scripture. I mean, like I want to be a changeable person, but I also, I got a busy life, and it's not all about me too. I do think a lot of self-focus causes it to be a lot about what me, and I don't want my life to be about that.
What are your thoughts on that? Where if a Christian might say, I don't need to talk about myself, how do you get to the point where you would explain? Kind of, we started with that a little bit, but is there anything else you can touch on to get someone who might think that way?
Yeah, I would say this. In some ways, actually in real ways, there are people who are more like the way they're wired. They're more internal processors, and like counseling is something that is super helpful to them. And then there are people that aren't wired that way, and it isn't as helpful. Now, there are certainly people who are resisting going to a counselor in a really bad way, and they need to go, right?
Right.
But I think for the person who maybe is a little bit too self-absorbed, a good counselor can help them get outside themselves and move away from that self-absorption.
Yeah.
For the person who is maybe moving away from thinking about themselves in a bad way, a good counselor can help them not be as afraid of that.
Yeah.
And really, they should be attuned to both types of people and be moving them towards thriving. That would be a picture for them of thriving, right? We all have a different bent.
Yeah.
So
No, that's such a great explanation. I think that helps clear a lot. this up. So
Yeah,
thank
It
you.
does.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to close on? If you have any lessons you want to say or anything else you wanted to
Oh, Lord have
share
mercy.
before we go? I feel like you've shared so much.
I think we've
It's been
talked about a
really
lot.
Great
helpful.
job. It
Um,
was so
I know.
helpful.
I guess, yeah, I will. I'll close with this thought. It's you having a second to think about it and pausing. This, at least this season, may be one of my favorite verses. Is in Hebrews 11, the Hall of Faith,
Yes.
where it talks about all those died without receiving what God promised, but they welcomed God's promises from a distance because they were looking for a heavenly homeland and they were acting like aliens and foreigners. And then it says this, that is why God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he's prepared a heavenly city for them. Realize the connection there. Those who feel like aliens and foreigners,
Right.
God's not ashamed to be called their God. Think about our conversation today. We went from joy to sorrow, from sorrow to joy, from too much self-absorption to maybe not enough of looking at yourself, like these tensions that we're always guiding or walking through, being guided by the Spirit to do that, right? That's being an alien. Like, I can't find anything other than the Lord as my foundation, but I can't see him. I can't control him. I can't manage him.
Right.
So for those of us who are looking for heavenly homeland and can really live as a alien and foreigner, the Lord is saying, I'm not ashamed to be called your God.
Yeah.
And so often the Lord is saying to us, well done, and we don't hear it.
Right.
So that would be a thought.
I love
I
that.
love that.
I know.
I know.
It's
Right?
beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's so sweet. I mean, this world is not our home. And it's so easy to get stuck here, and thinking that this is where we're going to be for forever, and it's not. I mean, and when we were kids, we had a minister for our youth that said somebody, he went on an airplane trip and there was a guy beside him and he had a rocking chair in there and he had all of his stuff. And I mean, he had just made his home in this airplane. He was like, but this airplane is not your home. But like, if we live knowing that we're going to someplace so much better and we have so many wonderful people there waiting on us to be with us, it's exciting. And more than just the wonderful people, we have heaven, we have Jesus and God just being there with welcome arms, and like, it's exciting.
It is. It is.
So-
That's very hopeful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming
Yeah,
and
it was-
sharing all that you did. It was a lot to take in, a lot to learn. I'm
Yeah,
very
well,
grateful.
thanks. Yeah,
So
thanks so much
fun.
for having
Yeah,
me. It was a
thank
good
you.
conversation.
Yeah, this is so fun. So, thanks for being here.
Oh,
Thank
I
you for
got
doing
teary
your
on that
part.
one.
I know.
That just like hit me perfectly. That was a great job. Yeah, I've been dealing, like, I'm in this kind of doing the same. I'm like, got a brain map yesterday. I'm just trying to, like, because I've been like that for so long. I've had a lot of grief and trauma and I've not dealt with it. And so I'm trying to, like, press into, like, it's okay to deal with your emotions. But I just love the picture of, like, God's okay with that too. He's okay with you saying, I want to meet with, I want to talk about it, but I also can find joy through it.
Right.
So I love just the hope of, like, he calls us his no matter what.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard. My mother-in-law is going through grief share right now. And like, she said when she first walked in, it makes my heart sad, but when she first walked in, they were talking about being a widow. And she was like, I just wanted to scream, I'm not a widow, And it's like, just the reality of where you are can be so hard.
Yeah.
And like, but facing it, I mean, I just tell her all the time, like, I've never seen somebody go through grief and handle it so beautifully. Like, she's admitting where she is. She's saying this isn't what she wants to do, but she knows that God's got a purpose in it, and she's just being real. It's been such a testimony. Sorry.
Yeah.
I hate crying. So I am not good about this. I have an emotional EQ of like 0. So sorry.
Well, side note, your tears are the way towards developing that emotional IQ. Think about this. Sorrow is better than laughter. Because sorrow has a refining influence on us. Or 2 Corinthians 7, we'll never regret that kind of sorrow. It helps us to turn away from sin and seek salvation. When we're sorrowing, we're actually turning toward the Lord. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. I say, in Grace from Head to Heart, the book I wrote, I think the way Jesus had buoyancy in this world was through his tears. That's what kept him connected to the Father, living as a foreigner and an alien.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Good to hear.
Oh, yes,
As we end on tears.
Yes,
Okay.
as we end on tears.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This was amazing. Thank you
Oh,
so
thanks.
much
Yeah.
for meeting with
Thank
us.
you.
Now I
This
know
was so
everybody
fun.
said they loved you.
I know, right? You got me to cry. I mean, like literally, we'll have meetings and all the men are crying. Oh, sorry, all the men are crying, and I'm not.
We've closed
Okay. I can't read without my glasses.
Oh, we have more
sorry. Yeah.
Okay, can we ask you one more question?
Sure.
Tape. Okay.
Okay, hold on.
I mean, I can't. Let me like. All right. I feel like it's not flowing, but okay. Okay, we talked about emotional health.
Yeah.
Well, can you describe some characteristics of what it looks like to be emotionally healthy?
Oh.
That is a really good question. Well, I think some of what we talked about, like being more regulated, and again, that doesn't mean you don't feel, all right? Telos is a big word. It's the direction we're moving in, okay? And so I like to think about emotions as being redemptive or not redemptive. Are they moving us towards good or are they not? If you think about the deeds of the flesh, quarreling, outbursts of anger, selfish ambition, division, obviously that's not a movement towards good,
Right.
all right? Fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, gentleness, and self-control. So let's take anger, for example. Most people, because they're taught the scriptures wrongly, think anger is wrong and something we're supposed to rush through, all right? Because they read the passage in Ephesians 4 that says, don't let the sun go down in your anger. Well, that is actually a paraphrase of Psalm 4:4. And you know what Psalm 4:4 says? On your beds, think about your anger overnight.
Really?
It is an admonition to process your anger. It is not an admonition to rush through your anger. So, and actually Ephesians, the first 3 chapters are this beautiful theology. The next 4 chapters are, if you believe this stuff, here's how you're going to live it out. Yeah. So we come down to the verse right before about being angry. It's speak the truth to one another in love. Don't be indifferent to what's right and wrong, another version. Right. What it's saying is truth matters.
Right.
So if truth matters, it's going to bring forth some anger.
Oh, yeah.
So have anger, but don't sin in it. What you need to do is then process your anger, bring it to the Lord, help Him, the way we talked earlier, transform it, so that you're letting go the anger that's vengeance and not good, but you're hanging on to the anger that is good. Good anger is the telos, the direction of good anger is to do justice. Okay? Right. And it's strength. So a simple way to think about it, we talked about the marriage relationship. Do you get angry at your spouse or do you get angry for your spouse? A lot of times when your spouse is struggling with something that is something they struggle with regularly, it's an issue. You're getting angry. You're not angry at them. You're angry that the evil one has tied them up again.
Yeah.
So use your anger for them, not at them.
Right.
So the telos of that anger is for good. So emotional health is someone whose emotion, in motion, the motion that moves them, is towards good. So a good way to become emotionally healthy, again, is part of what we talked about. Are you living in community where you get feedback all the time? We have this good desire, we say it, and it goes through our fleshly nature. And I'll say our intentions are like clean oil. They go through a dirty filter, our fleshly nature, and they come out mixed.
Yeah.
And we have a hard time hearing the bad part.
Right.
But if we hear the bad part and we sorrow the bad part, then the good part grows, all right? It was so hard for me for years to listen to the pain my wife was suffering by living with me, okay? It wasn't all that. Sometimes it felt like that. But what changed my anger, my jealousy, even my joy, was seeing how what I intended is often not what came across.
Yeah.
Right? And so I became more emotionally healthy as the telos, the direction of my emotion changed, being more for others and more with others, not for me or not separating me from others.
Yeah, it's really good.
Okay, I have a dumb question. So this is probably not going to be on there, but so I heard, I don't know where I heard it, but to separate the action and from the children, from the child. So like when you were saying this, I was thinking like, so my son struggles sometimes with being lazy. And so we named that character Lazy Day, and we separated that from him. I was like, that is not you, but you have a tendency to like fall into this. Lazy Day can take over sometimes. So we have to fight Lazy Day, and I'm going to fight anything that fights you, that hurts you. And so separating what they do from them.
Yes.
Because I like who he is not this person.
That's right.
And so I was just thinking when you were saying that, like, if I did that maybe in my marriage, I don't know though if that's healthy or not. So I guess that's what I'm asking. Is that healthy to separate it and be like, this negative trait, I don't want anybody to hurt my child, including themselves.
Yes.
And I don't want anybody to hurt me, including myself. And that's why I struggle with the Lord. Like, hey, look, I know this is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, I think it's spot on. If you listen to what Paul says in Romans 7, okay, and he says, the things I ought to do, I don't do.
Yes.
The things I do, I shouldn't do.
Yes.
And then he says, it's not really me, it's sin in me. Okay? That doesn't sound very American. It doesn't sound like he's pulling himself up by his bootstraps and he's just going to solve his sin problem by pushing harder and trying harder. Essentially what he's saying is sin is this bigger thing that I'm trying to battle.
Yeah.
And only Christ can set me free.
Yes.
So I think it's super important that we kind of distance ourselves from our flesh or separate. And so I would say, even with your son, I would say what the evil one tries to do is to actually make our strengths weaknesses by getting us to overindulge our weaknesses or overindulge our strengths. Sorry. Let's just say he's more relaxed by nature. All right. So then the evil one wants him to over relax. So he begins to hear negative about that and he hates that part of himself. Okay. So you could be a doer and then the evil one gets you doing for everyone and then you're worn out. You hate that part of yourself.
Yes.
So this is where we have to begin to sorrow. Like, first of all, I'm doing some things I don't want to do. Don't beat yourself up. Don't I really am feeding into this lie that I've got to, just veg out. Right. Now, teaching him where to veg out is really good. Teaching him where to push through is really good. But teaching him this is not you to maybe avoid responsibilities or whatever shows up. But yes, I think to distance ourselves from our fleshly nature, to not believe that's us, and to believe that we're fighting something bigger than ourselves that we need help with is a very biblical thing.
Yes, that totally inept. You're making me feel so much better about myself. Not just kidding. Maybe I've got a 0.5 EQ now, or what are the emotional IQ, whatever it's called. Thank you for helping. Yeah.